afternoon, RGEA members and guests. Welcome to today's webinar, When the Rules Change, Navigating Aging in Today's World, presented by Anna Watkins of Kildare Counseling. I'm Daryl Davis Fulmer and honored to be your host for today's Lunch and Learn. And I would like to thank Tracy Eubanks for her technical support and Tim O'Connell, our Executive Director, for joining us today. We appreciate you choosing to be a member of RGA as we collectively are stronger with you on our roles. So I will ask Tim right now to give us a brief discussion or a brief update on what's happening with the association.
Hey,
Thanks,
good
Tim.
afternoon, everyone. It is great to be here. I am Tim O'Connell. I am the Executive Director for RGEA. I'm entering my fifth year here, and I can say every day I come to work, and it's an honor to serve you all who have worked in public service. On that note, just a couple items. One, I wanted to let you know that RGA participated in the first statewide effort around recognizing Public Service Week. It's Public Service Recognition Week, and our organization was well represented. So that's very important because right next door to where that ceremony was being held was the legislature. And it was good to have. We had some representatives and lawmakers in the audience, but they really got to hear a great positive message about the importance of state and local government employees. And RGA was represented there because we want them to know that retirees are part of that equation. So very good celebration of that. And RGEA was one of the leading organizations behind that. We also just finished a really amazing conference, and we're going to be doing a few more in the fall and into next year. And the theme is around storytelling and the importance of sharing the work that you all have done and continue to do in your communities in the name of public service. It's said that if you don't tell your story, someone else will. So we want to make sure that the work that you have done is noted and you share those stories. So we'll be finding more opportunities to do that with you. And we look forward to you being involved in that effort. It makes a difference. On the advocacy front, we are on two fronts today. So literally, we started the day with a meeting with the retirement system on behalf of local government employees, having discussions around pension formulas and such that could deliver COLAs and bonuses, and making sure that we have clear language and understanding of that. And then right from that meeting, I was with Jackson Cozart, our Director of Government Relations. He sprinted down to the legislature. Today is a very busy day. This is probably going to be the most active day of voting going on in the legislature, and I'm going to dare say 2 to 3 years. So lots going on down there. If you're a state employee, I think you may have heard they have put a 2.5% bonus into the agreement between the House and the Senate for a bonus for state retirees. That has not been put in writing yet, but both the leader of the Senate and the leader of the House did a public announcement on that. So I want you to know that as well. On all these items, we'll continue to keep you updated. I just want to, in advance, thank Anna for her presentation. I think mental health is such an important part of overall health. It's inseparable, I think, from physical health. And as we age, things do change. We gather challenges through life. And sometimes we don't really think about them until we have had time to think about them, quite honestly. And I'm just looking forward to hearing from Anna and the tools she's going to be sharing with us today. So Anna, thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you so much, Tim, for that good news update. And I'd like to also make reference to the fact that this is Mental Health Month, as well as a celebration of Older Americans Month as well. So we have a lot of things going on. So this is a timely presentation this morning. But before we begin the webinar, I have a few items to cover. Each of you has been muted to help ensure the presenter can be heard. The presentation is being recorded. We will send the link to the recording along with a PowerPoint and a handout in our follow-up email. So you don't have the handout yet. We will send it in the follow-up email. And for those of you who sent questions with your registration, I have submitted those to Anna this morning. And well, not this morning, but earlier when I received those. And many have been incorporated into her presentation. If you think of a question during the presentation, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom page. You will need to use that, and we will try to respond to the questions if we can during the presentation. If not, we will hold them until Anna finishes this morning. So now a little bit about our presenter this morning. She is the owner and counselor of at the Kildare Counseling. And she has been focused on the effects of mental health on the aging population for many years. Her clinic provides therapy for the 55 plus community, and Anna earned her MSW from Chapel Hill, yay, and has focused on geriatric social work and has been a state employee and has worked at the Central Regional Hospital in geropsychiatry um, prior to founding Kildare Counseling. The pandemic opened the door for her to begin work as a therapist with low vision clients, leading her to open her business. And so Kildare Counseling has a team of 5 therapists, all of whom specialize in working with older adults and caregivers. Another hot topic for us, Anna. So, Anna, thanks for being here today and welcome. So, take it away.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm
You're
Anna
welcome.
Watkins with Kildare Counseling, and it is Mental Health Month and I think Older Americans Month. So, what a better day than today to talk about mental health as you're navigating aging. Everything keeps changing in our world. And we're often focused on our physical changes or cognitive changes, but we often overlook the emotional effects of those changes and how difficult they are, and how unexpected some of these changes are, and how that catches us off guard sometimes. All right. So, most everything that I'm talking about today comes from the therapy room from my work with older adults. I primarily only see older adults in my practice and caregivers. We'll be looking today about how to maintain your emotional well-being when changes arrives in life. The importance of connection and compassion for yourself and for others during these changes. And you'll go home with some practical tools and tips to support your emotional well-being. So, the first thing that obviously changes that you notice is often physical changes. And those often catch us off guard. You're already doing so many things to maintain your health, and all of that daily effort is the right thing. But as we know, the body still changes. This isn't a failure, it's aging. And the goal isn't to stop the changes, it's to stay emotionally well while they happen. Let's see. So, what do I see in my therapy room when clients come in? A lot of people do come in with chronic illness, chronic pain, mobility issues, loss of independence from driving. These are some of the reasons that people show up. But then what we actually talk about is the fear and the grief and the anxiety brought up by these things. Almost everybody fears memory loss and cognitive changes. I'm sure most of you do. And that fear can really reside in our body, that stress and anxiety, and cause problems for us. So I'm going to pick on walkers and canes, but really this is about any assistive device. They're not just medical items or mobility aids. They really all have meaning. I was putting together this presentation and I had a bum foot and I was feeling a little bit hypocritical about limping around with my hurt foot for the week. And so I ordered a cane off of Amazon. And I will tell you that that was an emotional experience and quite unexpected, even though I know it's difficult for so many people to accept using assistive devices. I was still surprised by the emotional experience that came with buying one, unwrapping the box, pulling it out, touching it. It's difficult to use these things. And that's because they represent surrender. They represent, being old. They represent losing your independence and identity and giving up. But I'm really hoping that in today's society, with our current acceptance of wellness and disability, that we can really change that narrative. That assisted devices like canes and walkers and wheelchairs can become less of a sign of old age and dependence and really more of a sign of freedom. So how do we do that? Well, of course, we have to not avoid the hard feelings. We have to sit with them. And this is often one of the first things we do in the therapy room. We notice and name the difficult feelings or thoughts or problems, and then we find a way to sit with them, observe them, not avoid. What makes you uncomfortable about aging? Is it, the idea of going to a nursing home or memory loss or needing help in the home? All of those things are difficult. And what feels uncomfortable for you? Where does it live in your body? I often have my stress in my chest or my shoulders. When you're thinking about using an assistive device or needing help from your children or a friend, having to call for in-home aid to help you with a bath so you can make sure that you're not at risk of falls. There are feelings associated with all of those processes, and it lives in your body. So we need to process them so we can release them, and we can start that process now before we need this device or before we need the next device or before we need to raise increase the number of helpers we have in our life. We can go ahead and start the acceptance process so that when we get to the point where we need those things, we're a little bit more prepared for the emotional fallout. So dementia, we talked about that dementia can be scary. The idea of it can be scary. But avoiding people with dementia or avoiding talking about dementia increases the stigma, and it doesn't show and offer compassion to people currently with cognitive losses. And they still have dignity. They still have humor. They still have their social skills, which really maintain a lot longer than some other skills. Who they are is still in there. The emotions remain. And of course, they can love. I have a comment. Did you mention that Ms. Watkins specializes in people with low vision? If so, can you say more about this work? I will probably come back to that a little bit later. I did work exclusively with people with vision loss for a few years. And that is a huge change that on one hand, it causes a lot of anxiety. I'll say that. Vision loss causes a lot of anxiety. And because you're losing the way that you interact with society, you're losing all of that visual input. It leads to isolation. It leads to panic attacks sometimes. So I very much encourage anybody with vision loss to attend a vision loss support group and perhaps talk to a therapist about your feelings with all of those changes that are happening. Sorry, I did talk a lot about vision loss. I did not save it for later, but I might come back to it. Okay, so when we're sitting with these hard feelings, the next step is rewriting the story. Sure, we can, our first instinct is that a cane or another assistive device makes us feel like we're aging, but what if we can rewrite that story? That the cane is an item that can give us freedom, take us on adventures. There's so many young people leading this cultural shift, and I'm hoping we can hop on board. So this is very silly, but I was hoping it was a good opportunity to sit with some of these feelings. Let's say we are in Ollivander's cane shop. Just like I went to Amazon, we're all going together to Ollivander's cane shop. And we're going to pick a cane. And just like on Ollivander's cane shop, Amazon and the world at large has so many options for, at least for canes, maybe not all assisted devices, but at least in this category, you do have some options to personalize pretty easily. So what does your cane look like? Let's sit with this for a minute. Which one are you choosing? Which one represents you? And let's think about that for a moment. A cane representing you. You might have some thoughts about that. A cane doesn't represent me because that means I need a cane to help me walk, that I can't walk on my own, and I'm not as independent or as able as I once was. But we're changing that narrative. We're working to change that narrative and replacing it with the idea that you can have this really cool cane and you can go on vacation with it. You can go see your friends, and it really leads to connection and family and friends. These are values. It leads to helping you meet your values versus avoidance, which can lead to isolation, depression, cognitive decline, even just from not getting out and being active. All right, next section. Asking for help becomes the real work. This is a big deal. Often people come into the therapy room and they don't want to ask for help. They don't want to be a burden to other people. They don't want to admit that they have physical changes, cognitive changes, that they would prefer to limp along literally and metaphorically instead of accepting help. But of course, humans are made to be interdependent. It's how our cultures were functioned for many, many centuries before modern day and the isolation that we currently experience for many of us. So there's a paradox. When we don't share with others our needs, then it removes their ability to prepare. Say we have a child or a friend or a close relative that is our person who's going to be there for us. When they don't know what's going on with them, instead of a conversation ahead of time, it turns into a crisis phone call when you really just cannot hold things together anymore. It replaces a chosen role of, giving a support person the role as a helper into an emergency one where they're not very prepared. Not everybody has a great relationship with adult children. That's a whole nother issue in the therapy room. That's not uncommon, but by and large, most adult children are not just willing to be helpers, they're honored, and it's a gift. So allowing somebody to help, having the grace to say yes, having the grace to say thank you is a skill that can be learned, and it's an important one. So resistance to all of this can look in a number of ways. When somebody is canceling the home health aide after one visit, when they need to use their cane, but they forget, or their walker, or they prefer to use their furniture for support, even if the furniture really isn't helpful. Declining family offers until it's just beyond necessary. Looking for alternative methods, treatments, cures, supplements, that those are fine, but to the avoidance of what would otherwise be a first choice intervention. And then, we really have a lot of feeling for the people that snap at people trying to help them. So we understand where they're coming from. We don't want to feel dependent. We want to feel independent. And all of these things are really about grief, about fear. It's about a story that we're telling ourselves about not needing help. And it's just a human response. It's not really a weakness that we do any of these things. It's a normal human response to change and aging. But again, we need to sit through these feelings, identify our values, and move forward through them. So there are two kinds of stigma: external stigma and internal stigma. We know the external stigma. We know that we fear what other people might think on occasion. What will they think if I go outside with my walker or wheelchair or cane, with whatever other medical device I need to use to maintain my mobility and independence? They'll think that I'm losing it, that I'm getting older, that I'll lose my standing in their eyes. But really, the internal stigma is often the loudest voice, and what we tell ourselves can often be quite negative. You're thinking, I should be able to do this without help. I don't want to be seen as weak. This means it's really happening. That's a big one. Using devices or allowing for help requires that you accept the change. And of course, accepting change is always hard, and that's normal. Let's see. But if we don't accept the change, loneliness is often where the road leads. When you avoid using assistive devices, avoid accepting help, you often end up more frequently at home and alone, which erodes your independence faster. It leads to dementia, depression. It can make it more rapid for the cognitive decline. So in the long run, accepting help, using devices that doctors or PTs recommend is really going to be in your best. It's going to be best for you. Let's see. So accepting help is a skill, and it can be learned. We're going to replace the discomfort that we feel, and we're going to replace that story with a more positive one. And we do that, in a sense, by building our team. So we talked about, we often rely on our children, but it can be other family members, close friends, partners. But also we have to look at our extended support network. And now is the time to really be strengthening our extended support network. Are we involved with our neighbors, our faith communities, our social groups? Daryl and I were talking before this webinar about the importance of volunteering, and making connections while volunteering would be a part of this extended support network that you're building. And it's wonderful if this network can be intergenerational, so that you're not only with peers of the same age who are aging along with you, but you have younger friends and support that can help, that can be with you as well. Of course, there's peer support. These are people navigating the same season of life. So let's say support groups. I can't, Don't never be afraid to go to a support group. With my vision loss clients, many are afraid to go because they don't feel like they're blind enough. And in reality, percentage wise, most people with vision loss are not fully blind, the vast majority. And the best time to go to a support group is at the onset of an illness before. So you can go ahead and learn from your peers, learn the skills, learn the resources, get ideas before you're really in a crisis situation. I've never met anybody, well, maybe one, regret going to a support group, but the person that regretted it was having trouble accepting the diagnosis. So that was the reason. Most people really appreciate the opportunity to go and just learning and listening from other people. You don't have to talk the first time, maybe introduce yourself with a quick, hey, but you can just go and listen. And of course, as we get older, there's lots of doctors and therapists on our teams. Our body parts all have doctors. When one body part has multiple doctors and specialists, then you're really in trouble. And then you get into your practical helpers, and they really become your support system, people that you rely on a daily basis. So, part of building your team is identifying somebody that you trust, somebody that will be there for you as things change, as you start needing more help, if you start having memory or cognitive changes. And you don't want to do this later. You want to have the conversation early. Again, you don't want to have the conversation in crisis or when it's too late and you're not able to really voice your desires. When you do it early, you are in charge of the steering wheel on the boat. You lose that right if you wait too long. So you want to make sure that you're calling your trusted person and saying, we need to talk about these things. I know it's hard for me to say, but we're going to talk about this anyway. You know that talking about cognitive decline or needing help is hard, but it is a gift that you're giving to somebody to go ahead and have those discussions. So this seems a little bit out of place, but we're going to briefly segue over to technology, because technology really complicates all of this. And then we'll wrap it back up for the ending. So before, without a lot of technology, you were kind of confined to your local community. You would wander down the street and a neighbor would see you. You could go down the bank, and the banker that you have always known will realize that you're having a change in cognition, perhaps, and encourage you not to take money out of the bank. But now we all have smartphones and credit cards and apps, and you don't need a lot of cognitive ability to book a flight to Europe. You can really, you can spend a lot of money online very quickly. Scammers are looking for you if you have early stages of cognitive decline, and they're really able to take advantage of you. And of course, everything, your benefits, your health care, it's all online and open to risk when we're not cognitively able to manage it as well. So what do we do with all of this risk? I don't know that there's an app or a solution because it's so complex and the internet is always changing. So I think we really have to rely on our people. And this is where you really have that window of opportunity to, again, have these discussions early so that you can have your voice to voice your preferences. You have the power to choose your trusted person, let them know what you want and what you don't want, but also your values to guide them when it's not clear. And all of this is done on your terms. So, who is your trusted person? Let's just take a moment. Do you have that one person you trust completely? Someone who knows your values, who would tell you the truth? Now, here's the big one. The person that you would listen to if they spoke this truth. Would you listen to somebody if they told you, hey, I think we need to work together on managing your finances, or I think we need to work together on ensuring safety and reducing risk? And does this person know that they're your person? Have you had this conversation, and will you have this conversation soon? So, what are we talking about in this conversation? We When we share our values, it's much more helpful because listing preferences doesn't cover all the bases, doesn't cover every eventuality. Your trusted person needs to know how you define success or a good life. So, what does a good day look like? What makes life worth living? What are your fears about losing independence or cognitive function? Because those are the things that your trusted person is going to look out for and try to protect you from. The things that matter to you. Are there financial decisions you'd want a trusted person to oversee? And this really comes into what level of risk are you open to? Are you okay if, you're wasting money buying multiples of tools or items for your hobbies because you forgot you already bought them? Is that an acceptable cost of maintaining autonomy? Or would you be mortified if you did that? You would want your trusted person to intervene a little bit sooner and say something. Um, and finances are tricky. I will say it really depends on your person and who they are and how much you trust them. If it's your spouse, then you're probably sharing phone passwords and account passwords and financial information early and often so that you can be there for each other to watch out for your accounts and for scammers and all of those things. If you're a trusted person, if you don't have, a spouse or a child to be your trusted person, it might be a neighbor, and that might look different for you. Your neighbor might have be assigned as your durable power of attorney, and they're going to have to go through more formal measures to intervene should you not be able to manage your own affairs. And that's okay. You just have to see what's going to work best for you and your person or people, and rely on estate attorneys, financial advisors, and others to guide you. Let's see. Give someone you trust explicit permission to speak up if they notice a change. That's very important. And they need to know what dignity means to you. So you will be getting this take-home handout in your email. It is a values inventory that can be used for this discussion. You can go through and check off what's important to you, and then have that as a reference for having a conversation about your values and your desires once you need a little bit more assistance in case you have cognitive decline or otherwise can't speak for yourself or need help speaking for yourself. So that's really all I have for today. But to wrap up, let's look at what we built together. We talked about the inner work, the emotional toll of aging, the emotional toll of chronic illnesses, how we have to look at it with honesty, and we have to do the work to reframe the negative self-talk, the negative gut reactions, or just the unhelpful gut reactions, into something more positive, more workable, more in line with our actual values. And in doing so, we have compassion for ourselves, we have compassion for others. We're able to sit with discomfort when we go visit a friend in memory care, because we know that sitting with that discomfort is good for us, that in the end, it is a way that we can work our muscle to manage anxiety, and moving through difficult things helps desensitize and break down stigmas. We talked about the relational work. We talked about building your team, finding your people, and asking for help and talking through your values before the crisis hits. And of course, the planning work. You've got your team, so now you have to have the conversation. So here are some resources. I made my own handout because so many resources are focused on advanced directives. You need advanced directives. Those are very important. But so many of them are very specific to significant cognitive decline, to end of life care, to medical decisions making. Now, some of these do have a little bit of value work included, but the values handout that I'm sending home with you is really appropriate for earlier conversations and earlier level interventions that your family and friends can help you with. If this is before you need to go to a nursing home or need memory care support or before end of life care, people can help you and come alongside you really at any time, and knowing the values of your loved ones helps with that. I mean, you always need help. It doesn't start later. We always need support from our friends and family. It looks different at different stages of our life, but it's not just for the future. Okay, I have a question. Where can we find these resources? So the page that I'm on now, there's the websites on it, and you will be getting these slides sent to you. And then the handout on the previous slide will also be sent to you as a PDF. So those will be coming for you. And I'll go ahead and go to this slide. If you want to get in touch with me after the webinar, you can get in touch with me by email or a phone, or go to my website, kildarecounseling.com. And we accept insurance. Of course, for state and retirees, your Humana Medicare plan gets you a $0 copay. So that's a great plan. Mm-hmm. Any questions?
Right. Thank you so much, Anna, for this great presentation. I do have a question that came in a little bit earlier. Let me see if I can find it. It pertains to thinking about health. Being overly concerned about health issues is one thing. And then the person wanted to know how to be happy after major losses in life.
Yes. So this question really has two parts. Being overly concerned about health issues, I see that as potentially having some amount of anxiety, perhaps rumination. Rumination is, so let me back up. Anxiety and worry is normal. Everybody worries. We're designed to worry. When, if you're camping and you hear a rustling outside, you need to think about maybe it's a bear or something, and you need to be alert. But in our daily life, anxiety can get out of control sometimes. And rumination is one symptom of that. When we're stuck on a problem, when we're stuck on, the worst case scenario. Now, if you are getting a diagnosis like cancer, you're on that medical roller coaster. Everything, you are naturally being jerked around, waiting for diagnoses, waiting for testing. And that is naturally anxiety provoking. But we can talk about natural anxiety reactions in the therapy room. We can talk about natural and normal grief reactions in the therapy room. It doesn't have to be to the level of extreme distress to bring it, because we want to prevent, something from getting worse. And then the second part is how to be happy after a major loss in life. And I think it's getting good at recognizing grief. You're low and you're feeling a certain way about a loss. Um, and you're not broken, you're grieving, and you need time to move through that grief. You need to have compassion for yourself, but know when to reach out to friends to connect and know that the grief will pass. And if it's not passing, or if it's too much, then you need to talk to a therapist. All right, I got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So we take most, if the question is about local government employees, we take Medicare, we take most Medicare Advantage plans, especially with Aetna and Blue Cross Blue Shield. So other PPO. So definitely just call if you're not sure about your plan and we can look into it. And then what about if you live outside of North Carolina? So there's a lot of laws that regulate mental health therapy. You have to physically be within the borders of North Carolina to be seen by a therapist licensed in North Carolina. If you were in Virginia, you would need to see a therapist in Virginia. And you can use your insurance, you should be able to anyway, in another state. There might be a different copay, but you should be able to use it. Let's
Right.
see, I do have some, go ahead, Daryl.
Do you have a question? I know that, we're hearing a lot of um, news that may not feel good to those of us who are in the older aging stages, I guess. Um, so how do we handle staying positive, if you will? Because I hear this a lot, with everything that's going on.
Depression is not uncommon, especially when chronic illness is present. Especially if you're going into higher levels of care in nursing homes. And so if you do feel depressed, you might want to try an antidepressant therapy or both. Both together is really the gold standard. But otherwise, happy. What is happy? Happy is sometimes an unattainable goal. We talked a lot about values today, and going back to your values, you may not be able to drive and feel that freedom anymore of the wind whipping through your hair, but you can still find a way to achieve or to meet your values of adventure, of freedom, of independence. They might just look differently. And there still might be some grief involved in that you have to honor and work through. But then if you can look at your values and find alternative ways to meet your values, then you probably will have a better sense that life is okay, that it's suitable, that it meets your needs. I think when you have the expectation that every day isn't going to be happy or joyful, but that you will be able to move through the hard times and back to the happy or good or joyful times. Just having that tolerance and the patience that to move through the difficult times to get to the better times is helpful.
And
Yes,
Anna,
Sharon.
yes,
Hold on,
Sharon
the
does have a
PowerPoint
question.
slides will be sent to you.
Mhm. Yes, they will be.
Have them in your email.
Right. They will be sent within the next day or two. And so check your email for the PowerPoint slides and the handout, along with the link to this recording. So one of the things, Anna, that folks have been talking about lately is something you brought up earlier about making sure you have a contact person who can help support you along the way. Can you say give any additional comments about that, or to encourage people to make sure that they have someone that they can call on and not try to go through, life by yourself?
Right. Connection starts early and often. Your friends today, I guess make sure now is the time to really honor your friends. Make sure that you're spending time with them, connecting with them, being real and honest with them so that when you need people later, that they're going to be people that are honored to be there for you. Not that it's a transactional relationship, but that's just how relationships work. And then intergenerationally, make sure that your network is intergenerational. Is pretty ideal. It's kind of morbid to think about, all your friends and family, passing before you, or needing their own help, and not being able to be there for you, but it does happen.
Yes. And Anna, you see the anonymous attendee question? That was really kind of where I was going with my challenges with regards to the news and everything that's going. So, does what you said about personal changes also apply to dealing with the systemic changes, rather, or systemic things happening in the country or the world that we have no personal control over changing?
Sure. And then another person
Good way to
asked
say
about
it.
depression and helplessness caused by the current political climate. And those two questions
Right.
go together. So I'll answer them together. This definitely comes up frequently when there's just so much turmoil and fear that people sometimes feel from political decisions and changes. First, we have to just sit with that difficulty and know that um, it's a normal reaction. Second, we often look at what is your sphere of control? What can you change? As a voter, you can vote. You can call in to your politicians. Whether you think that's valuable or not is up to you, is your own, ideology. But realistically, what do you have the power to do? And where you can do something, often it helps to do it. But then you have to realize that you can't do more than that. Um, and you have to find a way to accept that, which is hard. It is very hard because often you have a sense of not feeling safe, that the world isn't safe, that you can't trust the government, the country you live in. And that really that can go really deep, I'm telling you. When you start to feel like the ground under you isn't solid, then that might take you back to other times in your life where you didn't feel like the world was safe. Um, and sometimes you have to process both of those together, which creates for some deep sessions in the therapy room.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't really
And
answer. I don't have a clear answer for that.
yeah,
But it's normal to feel unsafe and in danger when you're worried about Social Security and Medicare and the stock market, things that you're relying on for your well-being.
right. Exactly. And I don't think there's one answer to that, of course. But I think one of the things that you did share today that might be helpful is that the more resources you know about and the more information you have, the better you are to make some decisions around what is happening today and how it is affecting you. And so I think everybody's feeling one way or the other about various things, and it just depends on what your needs are. But having a friend and making sure you have connections, what you say, Anna, and also being
Yes.
aware of resources that are out there and listening to webinars such as we present to educate, so that you're able to navigate a little more easily than before. We're not saying it's secure or that the answer will be the one you want, but at least it will be helpful. And so I think, let's see, we've gotten a couple of great comments about really great program. Thank you all. And um, we have, uh, let's see if I see something else.
Let's see, I've
Anyone?
got a couple questions that were
Yeah.
submitted by email.
Okay.
Resources
If you
for
could.
help care for a dementia relative desiring to stay at home a while longer. That's going to be community specific. I think all of you are all over North Carolina and
Mhm.
perhaps beyond. But I love adult daycares. They're the most affordable way to get care for an older adult with dementia. Of course, there's in-home care. Now, this may not be helpful for you, but maybe it'll be helpful for somebody else you know. Medicare has a new guide program which will pay for a very limited number of hours of in-home care to give the caregiver respite. It's only for people with original Medicare. So if you have a spouse or a friend who has original Medicare, look into that program to get some free respite care.
Great. All right. So, Anna, do you see the other question about the effect of social media on mental health?
Ooh, that is a
I
whole nother
know, that's
webinar,
another
Daryl.
webinar. Yeah, that's
It
this is
really is. It's a huge problem in our society. It's addictive and it has led to a lot of really poor outcomes for especially young people, but I'm sure it also um, has negative effects on in people of any age.
right. Yeah, there's a lot of work being done around that right now because now I think we're realizing what happens with social media, whereas even 5 years ago it wasn't as prevalent as now. So that's a
Correct.
really good question and something we should look into. So thank you, whoever asked that question. Um, so we're at the close. Anna, did you have any final comments before I close
No,
this up?
that sounds good to me. Thank you for having me, Daryl. It was a pleasure to
Well,
be able
you're
to talk
quite
to all of
welcome.
you.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. So I have a couple of reminders for everyone. Um, don't forget to complete the survey that we will send you once we send out the follow-up email. And again, the PowerPoint slides, the handout, the link to the recording, and the survey will be in the email we send out tomorrow or Friday. It's quick and easy to complete, and we need you to complete it by Tuesday if you can. Before we leave, though, note that the next Lunch and Learn webinar will be held on Wednesday, June 10th at 12:30, entitled Hands Only CPR. It is actually CPR month next month, and AED. And our presenter, Irene McCarthy from the American Heart Association, will be talking about that along with some heart information and essentials. So please be sure to register by June 7th for that webinar. And so, Anna, again, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today and giving us this valuable information. And in the PowerPoint slides is information about how you can get in contact with Anna. But as always, if you have a question and you want to come through me, please email me, and I will be happy to help find an answer for you. So thank you everyone again for joining us. And as always, the association stands ready to assist you in your retirement. Happy Wednesday and enjoy your day. Take care.